שלום חזיין מוגבה أنا إيفان رومين جونس بشنتيتون الأطرا تي في ودي بتبقى بميقرتا مارتا ويليامز قد إلى خا animal communicator ونوية إلى من حيوان بدال مجور همزمة ميقرتا ويليامز publish فيتلا روبوت تاوي بازد هر animal communication و پشتلا دیتا گو کل دنیا ادی از اخ طبق میداله گو بیتد میقرتا ویلیامز طبق بیو همزمخ بازد animal communication پقدم
Okay, so I started out studying biology at Berkeley University in California, and then I got a bachelor's degree there. Well, actually I was studying resource conservation, and then I went to San Francisco State and I got a master's degree in biology there. So I realized that doing this environmental consulting work was not what I wanted to do. Wildlife rehabilitation was nice but didn't pay, so I needed to find something else to do. So I basically just kind of said to the universe, you know, help me find what I'm supposed to do. Be careful when you do that, because then I got led to doing something completely different, like Monty Python, right? So then it was a kind of a long story, but the short version of it is I went on a vision quest, and the whole idea of animal communication kept coming up on that quest, and I realized that I needed to go, and I found out that somebody taught it how to do animal communication, and I went, are you kidding me? Because I just thought it was something in science fiction novels. So I went to this teacher who turned out not to be my teacher, but it got me started in it. And I learned about it, learned how to do it, and then kind of went off from there on my journey, which has been a 30-year journey in the whole field of intuitive communication with animals and nature. So that means, you know, working from your intuition to get information, not verbally like what we're doing right now. It's a whole different concept.
Williams, would you please tell me about your vision quest?
So a vision quest is something that is common in many, many cultures. And it's where, and it's often in indigenous culture. And there are people who say that when white people do it, they're ripping off, you know, the culture, which, yeah, you know, there's a certain point to that. But it's, I think it's also important for people to be able to grow spiritually in whatever way they want, you know. And so a vision quest is to go seek guidance from spirit, from the gods, from the guides, whoever you call spirit, right? So it's like going and saying, hey God, help me, you know, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, help me figure this out. But you go into nature. So for a vision quest, you go into nature and you spend time all alone in nature, in the wilderness, by yourself. Nobody else. You know, you have some supplies, you basically don't eat, just drink water. I think it was a 3-day thing. So you go find a place to camp, but you're all by yourself out in the middle of nowhere. And there's, you know, could be wild animals, who knows, right? So what kept on coming up for me was eagles. I kept on seeing eagles all over the place. That was quite unusual. And then the people who ran the vision quest were some friends of mine, and they were the ones who told me about animal communication. I didn't know that there was somebody teaching it. We were sort of talking about it, and then they said, oh, you know, there's somebody who teaches that. And I was like, what? So that was where I got introduced to the whole idea that you could learn how to talk to animals and plants. However, in my research on this subject, subsequently, I have found that most native cultures, if you went to any existing native culture that is like it was originally more than modern, and you said, do you talk to animals? They go, yeah, don't you? What's wrong with you? You know, so it was really common for our ancient ancestors to do this. I've published 4 books on animal communication, and the first book is, the first one I wrote, is called Learning Their Language. And it pretty much tells everything that I know about this field. Plus it has exercises and how-to instructions. And it's really a very easy to read book. And a lot of people really like it. And I wrote it because I realized that there wasn't a book out there in this field, and there still isn't really, that just tells you how to do it, you know, and tells you what it's about. And that doesn't, I don't use this book to glorify myself. I do share stories from my clients, students, and friends and family to show that in fact regular people can do this, and regular people have phenomenal results that they can verify. The second book I wrote is called Beyond Words, and it is a book that where I decided to do some research and looked into if there was any documentation about how indigenous cultures had been able to do this, talking with animals and nature intuitively, because I believed that they could, and they did, but indigenous culture isn't really documented or written down. However, there was a guy in the 1950s, Ronald Rose, who wrote a book called Primitive Magic, and he actually was funded by the Psychic Research Society to go to Australia and study Aborigines. And what he determined is that the Aborigines were getting information from animals around them about what was happening in villages 200 miles away. And then they would go, oh, my kookaburra told me that so-and-so just died. And Ronald would be like, what? You know, and kookaburra is a bird. And he'd go, okay. And then he would send one of his assistants out, you know, to travel 200 miles to that village and find out if that person actually died the day before. And what he found out was that everything they were telling him from their animal familiars was true, verified, which I think is phenomenal. But of course nobody knows about that book. It was gathering dust in a library somewhere, but it's one of those, I think in the grand scheme of things, that's a pivotal book for our history on this planet, to understand that our indigenous ancestors absolutely did this. It was normal to them. If you went and asked any culture right now that's living in the old way, hey, do you talk to animals and plants? They go, yeah, don't you? You know, what's wrong with you? They would see us as weird, whereas we see them as weird. But, you know, that's true on a lot of levels. Most of them heal with plants and herbs and stuff like that, and energy, not with pharmaceuticals. So that's a big difference. Okay, so the third book I wrote is called Ask Your Animal. And this book is about how to use intuition and intuitive techniques to address different problems that you have with your animal, including physical stuff or behavioral problems. So it's a how-to. Oh, and I should mention that Beyond Words also has really, really incredible stories that I collected. So it's just a great book of stories. And then this fourth book is called My Animal, Myself. And this book goes into how to tell what your animal is doing in your life to help you heal and to teach you. And the premise of the book is that animals come into our lives on purpose, many times, to help us deal with issues and to help us heal and to help teach us what we need to learn. And this book really goes into that theory and develops it. And there is no other book like this. Basically, all my books are unique, and nobody has really done any books like this, even though lots of people have written books in this field. So when people want to know how to do this, I say, well, it's innate in us to be able to do this, but we have to rediscover it. And I have taught thousands and thousands of people by now. And I know that everybody can learn how to do it if they want to learn how to do it. And if you want to get something across to an animal, any animal, wild or domestic or something in nature, just say it out loud like you're talking to a person and they'll get it. Because we've been conditioned to suppress this ability, but nothing else, all other non-human life are masters at this ability, not just good at it. They're masters. So that's all you have to do to get your point across. If you want to be able to hear back, then you have to do some practice. And you have to do things that are verifiable. Like you have to go talk to somebody's dog and say, okay, what do you like to do? And, you know, tell me about what problems you've had in your life and tell me what happened this month to you. And then you go back to the person and go, okay, this is what I got. Is this right? And I'll just say that my students in my program, because I have a program for teaching people, they're 80 to 100% right all the time. Usually closer to 100. Wow. Now, if you're looking at talking to unusual things like mosquitoes or ants or bees or whatever, it's the same. It's the same technique. It's the same. They get it. They hear you just the same as a dog would. And it doesn't matter what their sensory abilities are. They get it intuitively. So you just say it out loud and they'll get it. And it doesn't even matter if you're in proximity. You can do this over immense distance and they will get it. So you can tell a mosquito, hey, you know, this is really annoying. You guys are really annoying. Now, is that going to make them not be annoying? Possibly not. But it's worth a try, you know. And yeah, so you can do your own experiments. The guy who wrote what I consider to be the best book on this subject, called Kinship with All Life, his name is J. Allen Boone, J the letter J, Allen Boone. And he's dead now. He wrote this book in the 40s. And he talked to this fly. And he had this fly named Freddie who was like his buddy. And Freddie would like sit on his finger and then he'd go, Freddie, do a flip. And the fly would do a flip and lay him back on his finger. I mean, it was phenomenal. And the book is about his adventures and discoveries of communicating with animals that he learned because his friend, he was in Hollywood, he was a screenwriter. His friends owned this dog that was like Rin Tin Tin, but not, it was contemporary of Rin Tin Tin. And when they went away, they had him, Jay Allen, take care of him. And that dog basically made Jay Allen relate to him as an equal. He's like, oh, no, 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 I'm your equal. And he basically got Jay Allen to communicate with him. The problem with the book is that there's nothing in there that tells you how to do it. So that was one of the reasons I wrote this book. Because at the time that I wrote this, and even today, there's not a book that really clearly tells you how to do this. And I went, well, that's something we need on the planet. So I wrote it. Okay. So being a vegetarian, I think, is a better choice for the planet by far, because of well, especially if you look at agribusiness and the large scale agricultural operations with animals are cruel and horrible and useless. Now the smaller scale organic farms where the animals get to be free and have a good life, that you can justify a little bit more. And there's something called regenerative farming, where they're doing that kind of animal raising and they're returning everything to the land and rebuilding the land. So I mean, there's arguments to be made, but unless you're doing that, what you're doing is cruel. That's it, you know. If somebody gives an animal a great life, make sure that that animal, when it's slaughtered, is slaughtered as humanely as possible. You could make an argument that that's, you know, that's okay. That's as good as it gets. And that's the argument I make for feeding meat to my animals, because I don't believe dogs and cats in particular, they can't just eat plant. They can't eat very much plant at all, or they're not going to be healthy. And I remember going to one of my vet's offices, and she's like, can you go talk to that girl? So there was some girl who had her cat on a vegetarian diet, and it was dying in the office. And I tried to talk to this girl, and she just didn't get it. I said, you know, your cat is dying because of that diet. Because she had her on a totally plant diet. You can't feed a cat that. You might be able to get away with feeding a dog that, but and I do have a client who does that in Italy, who thinks it's the best thing since sliced toast, you know, but I'm like, okay, but probably most people wouldn't be able to pull that off. And I think they need meat. Now, do people have to have meat? I wouldn't make the case for that, but when you start talking about other stuff, I would say for sure eggs. Come on. If a chicken is raised humanely, if it has a great life, like my chickens, they get to run around, they're out there playing in the mud. You know, if they are raised just for eggs, and if you don't have a rooster, the eggs aren't even fertilized. The eggs would never be a chicken. They're just eggs. So how is that a moral question? It's not a moral question. You can't make it a moral question. It's no more of a moral question than eating an apple, because that apple could become a tree. But you're eating it, so you're keeping it from being a tree. So doesn't that tree feel really bad that you're, you know, come on, people. You know? So anyway, I think eggs are beyond reproach if the chickens have a happy life. Looking at dairy, it can go back to that. Well, were they raised humanely? Were they happy? Were they this? Were they that? And even then, it can be a little iffy for dairy because they have to separate. To get the milk, they have to take the baby away. At least pigs for a certain period of time. You could minimize that experience for the baby and the mom. You know, but I mean, it gets into a gray area, but eggs I don't think are a gray area if they're raised well. And then when you start talking about meat, I mean, getting killed is probably never going to be a great experience. But there are people who come out to your ranch and do ranch slaughter, and they do it in a really, you know, very low-key way so that it doesn't bug all the other animals. And, you know, I mean, okay. I can handle that. I mean, I am a biologist at base. And so I do think that things need to eat things to live, you know. So there's gray areas in there. But what isn't a gray area for me is anything having to do with agribusiness. Any kind of large-scale, mechanized, you know, pharmaceutical-based, small size lodgings and holdings for animals, for pigs, for cows, for chickens. None of that's okay. Okay, so there's 6 ways that you can get information intuitively. And so when I say to people, tell me what intuitive impressions you're getting, that is the way intuitive communication works. Now, when you talk out loud to an animal, they might be receiving it in one of these 6 ways, but it doesn't matter. Because the way I see it is there's like a, you know, black box in between you and the animal, and it just interprets for them, and they receive it the way they receive it, and who cares? They get it. I know they get it. That part we know. I have a funny story about that. My sister, who was a veterinarian, who was very skeptical about all this stuff, I told her how to talk to her animals, like what I told you. And so she went to her horse, who was all about food. That's all he was. He is still. And she said, okay, Ollie, if you really love me, stop eating, which she didn't think that would ever happen, and come over and give me a kiss. And he did. And then she went, okay, I think I believe this stuff now. And he just heard that however he heard it. Maybe saw his picture or whatever. So here's the 6 ways. 5 of them parallel our 5 sensory abilities. So you can see a picture in your mind, but you think you're making it up. You can hear an animal say something, even paragraphs, sentences, paragraphs, not just words, but you think you're making it up because you hear it in your mind's ear, you know? You can feel physically or feel emotionally, both. So you could go, wow, why does my arm hurt? And then you find out the animal has a hurt limb. Stuff like that can happen. You can have virtual smells and taste that give you information. Like you get the smell of lavender and you go, why am I smelling lavender? And then the person goes, oh, the cat loves to sleep in the lavender bed, you know, at the house. So like that. And then the 6th way, those are my chickens in the background, scratching, looking for food. The 6th way is you just know it. You go, I don't know how I know. I'm not getting any impressions, but I just know that that dog was abused. And then, of course, you go check it out, and it turns out to be right. I have, in the past, traveled to do this quite a bit. I don't do that anymore, but I did. And I went, you know, all over. I went to Europe. I went to Canada, Mexico. I did go to the Bahamas one time to swim with the dolphins. And I decided that I didn't like the way dolphin trips kind of exploit the dolphins, so I didn't want to do it. But it was a very interesting trip. And one thing I remember was everybody on the boat, the other passengers, were jumping into the water and swimming off to go be with the pod of dolphins that they saw. And I was like, I'm not doing that, you know. And so I just got in the back of the boat, and all the dolphins came over to me. That was pretty funny. Anyway, so, and I've been to Australia a couple times. I think that's about it.
For
Teaching.
teaching.
Yeah, I actually went all over Australia teaching. Now, the place I went the most was the Netherlands, because I had a couple of people who really liked me, who I got very close to. One of whom is still a really good friend. Facebook, like Zoom friend, right? And she had me come multiple times. I mean, I must have taught in Holland at least 10, 15 times. And I love Holland. I mean, it's a wonderful place to visit. I'm not so sure about the leadership, but that's true for every country, right? So, yeah.
Okay, Marta, where can they find you?
So I have a website, which is my name, martawilliams.com. And I also teach classes online now. So I don't travel, but if somebody wants to take a class, they can sign up for one of my classes online. I do teach a beginning class, so that you could try it out by taking a beginning class. If one is not scheduled on the schedule, I can do that as a private tutoring session. So people might be interested in that. And then I have a program, if somebody really wants to get good at this, they could be part of my master program. And that's described on my website. So the other thing I do is I also do consultations for people who have problems with their animals and behavior problems, or they want help finding holistic resources for their animals who are ill, or they have a lost animal. I do that too, using intuition. And my fees range from about $100 to $200 for classes and consultations. So the idea that one can do what's called medical intuition is real. It's a real thing. It is, however, not legal to do that, to make a diagnosis or to prescribe, because that's the role of a veterinarian. So I don't do that, but I can give people my impressions, and they can use those to decide like what they want the vet to, additional things they might want the vet to look at in addition to what the vet's already looking at, things like that. And I just try to only suggest ideas that won't be break the bank type thing, like, well, if they're doing a blood panel, make sure they do the kidney, that kind of thing. If they're already doing something like that, just include this. So I have, on many, many occasions, been absolutely accurate about what was going on physically with an animal. And one case that I wrote about in my book that happened early on in my career was one of the more telling cases, because it was a horse that was in West Virginia, I think, and it was acting up and being really dangerous when this woman would try to bridle it and ride it. And all these people were giving her advice like, well, you need to tie that horse to a cart and run him around, or they were just telling her to do all these things, tie him up for a day, and she's like, that just doesn't seem like the way to go here. So she had already had a bunch of 3 different vets check that horse, and they all 3 checked his teeth and told her that his teeth were fine. So then she called me, and when I talked to the horse said, I want to be good, but when she comes near me with that bridle, it hurts too bad. I cannot tolerate it. And he said, my mouth is so sore, I can't do it. And so I went back to her and I said, look, I don't know what's going on here, but he's telling me he's got problems with his teeth. And she said, well, 3 different vets looked in his mouth and said he was fine. And I said, okay, I don't know. All I know is this is what I got. So to check it out without having to pay a whole lot of money, I'm gonna call one of my friends who lives near you who does horse massage. So my friend Lorinda went up to this lady's house, and when she got there, she called me and said, I have never seen a horse with more muscle tension in his neck than this horse. His neck is like iron. It's like he's not even real. That's how bad it is. And then she looked at his teeth and said, "It's his teeth, Marta." And then she got a vet that she knew to come and look at him, and the vet said, "This is one of the worst cases of tooth problems I've ever seen." Now, to his credit, one of the vets who had signed off on this horse came back to watch this vet do his teeth, the one who knew about teeth. Now, just so you know and your viewers know, horses, when they get teeth problems, what happens is they have a tooth that'll just keep growing in a point, like a knife coming down, and it'll start to dig into the flesh of the lower jaw, or if it's going this way, the flesh of the upper jaw. And it's what they call points, and it's like excruciating pain. It's like having knives digging into your teeth, into your flesh. And unless you saw those off, it doesn't go away. It's really bad. So that horse got the help he needed finally, but if we had just said, "Oh, the veterinarians, know what they're doing, and I'm just going to ignore what I'm getting, and what I feel like the horse is telling me, I'm just going to ignore that, because the veterinarians must be right." I didn't say they were wrong. I just said, well, something's wrong. This is not okay. And the horse is saying it's his teeth, so.
So they fixed it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I do have a good story. Okay, so this story is in my book, Beyond Words, and it's about a dog who got lost. And the lady who so the lady was from British Columbia, and the dog got lost from a pet sitter's house, and it went into a wilderness area where there were coyote packs. And everybody told this lady, "Look, your dog is toast, just forget it." And she just kept on, she and her mother, bless her mom, felt like the dog was alive. That was their intuition. Everybody else who knew her was giving her such a hard time. Get over it, stop, you're just obsessing. Your dog's dead, it's coyote country, And the dog was an agility dog, a Polish breed, really neat dog. His name was Swerve. And it's already in the book, so this story's already out there. And so she got a hold of me and one other person who was a student of mine practicing, and we both worked on this case as a lost animal case. Hi, Darwina. And I think I told you I have them all named. So that's Darwina after Darwin, right? Darwina.
That's Darwina.
Darwina.
Behind the...
Anyway. So both my ex-student, and I got that the dog was alive. We were like, well, we think it's alive. And we got all these details, like I remember I got somewhere where there's green grass and there's a big truck, like, those trailer trucks. And it's right on the edge of the wilderness and this, that, and the other, right? And my student got all this other stuff. And the lady would go look for it and couldn't find anything we were saying, But she kept putting flyers up. We said, well, just keep putting flyers up. That's really important to do, by the way. And then I think it was 3 months later, some lady called her and said, I think I've seen your dog outside our place. Well, they lived right on the edge of that wilderness where the coyotes were. And her husband was a truck driver. And they had a big green lawn and they had a truck parked right next to it. And everything added up when she went out there. And then she saw her dog. And she was like, oh my God. And then her dog turned and ran away. And she's like, oh, shite. So she, that's German, so it's not really swearing if it's German. So she, so she, went home and got all this stuff, the dog stuff, her stuff, put it all around the lawn and hung out there waiting for, and the dog came back. And then when the dog came back, he smelled all his stuff. She opened the door to her car and called his name, "Hey, Swerve," and he just ran and jumped right in the car like nothing had happened.
Wow.
And he had managed to stay alive living in between two coyote packs.
Wow.
But she got him back. And that was because she believed in her intuition. Okay, so my next project, or my current project, is divergent from animal communication to some extent, because I'm writing a novel. And it's a mystery novel, and it's an environmental mystery novel that is based on the whole concept of climate manipulation. But it's a comedy. So hopefully people will read it and laugh, and as they're laughing, learn something, because I couldn't figure out any other way for people to get it about weather manipulation. And there's also going to be animal communication in that. But it's going to be a little bit of everything. The reason that I have animals that live so long, like my dog's 18, my horses are, a couple of them are in their 30s, is because I do a lot of supplements, and I do all natural, all organic food.
Good.
And in my consultations, I give people resources for how to do that for their animals. So I put some vitamin in the water, that's why it's yellow, in their water. So now we're going to go get the rest of their food and go feed them. And I had, this is a different place, and the ground squirrels got in, and they got into the cage at night and killed a couple of my favorite chickens, and they almost killed my rooster, and they ate his whole head off. And it took me about 4 days to kind of, they didn't go through the brain bone to the brain, but it chewed everything else off his head. His comb, his hair, you know, his feathers, and the flesh. And he looked horrible. And I knew I couldn't just put him with the other chick, put him back there, because with blood, chickens will attack blood, you know. So I had to get him to the point where he didn't look so horrible. And I did that with homeopathics, like colloidal silver and homeopathic remedies. And then he wasn't eating though, and I was having to force feed him, and I knew that wasn't going to work, you know. So I told I took him down to the chickens, and I said, "Okay, girls, here's your boy, you know, don't peck his head, please. And you guys are going to have to make him eat, because otherwise he's going to die. He's not eating, he's not drinking." And they totally did. His favorite chicken sat by him the whole, like for days. She would just sit by him, and then when I brought the food, she would start eating and make him eat. And it was just the sweetest thing, and he got all better. He was a wonderful rooster. There are some great roosters in the world. Don't let people tell you different. This guy's really good. My friend who I got this rooster from, she said the way to keep roosters from being aggressive is when they're growing up, just set your boundaries. Don't be all goo goo gaga, pick them up, kiss them, hold them. Don't do that. You know, go, "Look at buddy, here's a boundary. You know, you respect my boundary." And then they'll do that for the rest of they'll never attack you. Because I did have some roosters that attacked me. It wasn't fun.
Yeah.
This one rooster would, whenever I would come out, because he thought I was going after his girls, right? And he would chase me around the barnyard, attacking me from behind. So I had to walk with a broom behind me to keep him from. And finally I went, you know, this relationship is dysfunctional. Well,
You're not afraid of your chickens being killed by hawks or birds, or?
well, they can be killed by a lot of things. I haven't had a problem with coyotes or anything or foxes, but I have had 2 chickens killed by hawks. And so that piece of plywood, that's where they killed them, right there. And because they didn't have any place to hide. So I put that plywood up there so they can, if a hawk comes down, they can go behind the plywood.
So you create safety zones for them. And now we're gonna
I
go.
understand what you're saying.
We're gonna go feed the horse.
Yep.
You only have one horse?
No.
Oh, you have a couple?
Yeah. Yes, I do. So if you're gonna be a farm girl, you gotta be strong. You know? And you don't get to rest. And you have to wake up early.
How early? 5, 4,
6.
6?
That's pretty early.
Yeah, that's early.
I mean, there were jobs that I had when I was working in your world, where I had to commute. Crazy. And I had to get up at 4. But that was when I was younger. A lot younger. Okay, girls, eat up. Yeah? You done? Okay. Here you go. You guys want to go? Okay, this is fun. Now they're going to all run over there. There you go, girls.
Maybe I should get out of their way.
Well, you're not in their way. But they're wary of you. Come on, girls. Tick, tick, ticks. Yeah, the reason they're staying in there is because of you. So if we go this way, they'll run out. Hi, guys.
You're right. Now they're going out.
I know my chickens. I have them all named.
Real, and you recognize every single one.
Sometimes I think for a minute that the reason I have all these animals is so that I can name them. You know? Like, I need a new animal because I need to use that name.
You always love animals.
Okay, this is my pony, Mary Bell, and that's my halflinger, Devin, the yellow one. Here you go, guys. Ooh. There you go. And then in the back there, you can help me name that horse, because I called her Rosie, but it's not her.
It's a female?
Yep. Yeah, I need help naming her, because the name I have for her isn't right.
Give her an Assyrian name.
Yeah.
Call her Ishtar.
Well, we can talk about it at lunch.
Yeah.
You tell me what's some possible name. But look at her. So she's an older girl. She's 30s. She was abused really bad.
Yeah.
When I got her, she was so skinny. You wouldn't believe it.
Wow.
She didn't trust anybody. She wouldn't let you come near her.
How could anyone abuse animals?
Oh, it happens all the time. So this is Devin, and that's Mary Bell. And they all have stories.
How did you get them?
Different ways.
Yeah.
I got him from a friend of mine. You couldn't go near him. Couldn't touch him. And my friend was going to sell him because she didn't want him. But who's going to buy him, right?
Mm.
That's going to be nice to him when he was crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I said, look, I'll just buy him from you. So I think I paid $400.
Him?
Well, yes. He is really good on the ground. He's really good with people. He loves people now. He's a really good boy. But he isn't really trained for riding. And she's a bit too old to ride. Because she's like probably over 30. So she was a Mexican dancing horse.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's what's called a paso fino. And so when you get on her, she thinks she has to go to work, and she starts doing the Mexican dancing horse thing. But she's just a little old and sway back to, and I'm heavy, so it's like, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
So
You don't have to. They don't need to be.
they don't have to be,
Yeah.
you know, the whole point is that they have a safe life and a happy life and a calm life and a peaceful life, and
No one's abusing them.
no, not me.
Yeah, thank God.
They abuse each other.
That's their problem.
That's what horses do. They're really nasty to each other.
Really?
Okay, should we go? Carlos, you look like you had a hard day at the office.
He's so cute.
He is a very cute, sweet boy. He's probably about 20.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, Carlos. Hey, Carlos, let me
Carlos,
see
let's see
you.
your pretty eyes.
Oh.
Oh, I gotta rest, you guys.
We just had breakfast at the Clover Cafe, and this is their organic grown vegetables and herbs. And it's a lovely place if you're in
The cafe's in Oregon House. I live in Dobbins.
Dobbins. Okay, but that's close to some place that they can recognize.
Well, it's close to Marysville and it's close to Grass Valley, sort of.
But we're not in Grass Valley. Ah, okay.
Outside of Grass Valley.
Outside of Grass Valley. And it's a beautiful place, nice restaurant. The food was excellent. And Marta is always interesting to listen to. Okay, Marta.
Okay, see you.
See you. Thanks
My
for
friend.
having me. Bye-bye.